Hey everybody, it's Ann Beebe. Today is Sunday, February 16th, 2020. I'm Barb Hammer. It's been over a week since I've done a video, and since then I'm back in my apartment. We got access to our apartment, or we were able to move back into our apartment on Monday, February 10th. But only the renovation work hasn't been finished. The good thing is we're out of that hotel room after several months, but the nightmare since last August continues. So there's no linoleum on the kitchen and bathroom floor. I did a video where I kind of showed talked about the damage from flooding last August from an apartment upstairs. So no linoleum on the kitchen or bathroom floors. It's just basically a bare concrete floor. They had to take up the linoleum because apparently there was supposedly asbestos underneath the linoleum, the old linoleum. They had to rip out walls. I'm back in the spare bedroom, which I was using as my office. I've just got some packing boxes and some other things. I'm not setting up the room again. I can't. So I've just got my computer desk and computer in here. There's no light fixture in the ceiling. I have a small desk lamp. So the walls were never finished. Apparently the drywall wasn't even installed properly. And they didn't put insulation behind the drywall. And in the bathroom, same situation. They ripped out the damaged drywall, and they put in drywall without the insulation. And there's no bathroom mirror. There was a medicine cabinet on the wall. No bathroom mirror. There's no bathroom sink. No bathroom cabinets or vanity or counter or whatever. There's a toilet and the tub and shower, and there's only like one bulb in the ceiling. So not all the lights are back in, no mirror. So it's not the plumbing is there, or at least part of the plumbing that we need. We still have to use our kitchen sink. We're not homeless, but it's just been a nightmare. So since Monday, been trying to kind of make things a little more livable, and we've been very quickly looking for another place, and I think we found a place. So we'll be moving in the next couple of months. So that's a relief anyway. I'm glad to have my old computer back and running, and actually have a room where I can make these videos. So there's something I've been wanting to talk about very much, and that is Jeff J. Brown of the China Rising blog. Okay. So several weeks ago, when I still was staying in the hotel, Jeff J. Brown interviewed me, and I posted the Mirror interview here on my channel. It's on his channel. And right after that, Jeff went on. I've said this before, he's gone off the rails. And I kind of regret getting mixed up with Jeff in a way. He seems like a nice guy. And I can't remember exactly how I stumbled upon his work. So last year, on the 30th anniversary of Tiananmen Square, I learned the truth about Tiananmen Square, that it was a color revolution and there was no massacre in Tiananmen Square. And so I learned the truth. I started to learn the truth about Tiananmen Square. And I learned more since. I did a video on that anniversary, and I've learned more since then. And that's when I started realizing how many lies there are about China. The propaganda about China, of all the countries in the world, it really is what Jeff calls the big lie propaganda machine. It's just, I have to just assume everything that you read in mainstream Western media is just a big fat lie about China, because that seems to be the case when I actually dig. So I don't know. Somehow I stumbled upon Jeff's work, and because he knows China, he lived there for years, and he speaks Chinese. He knows Chinese language and culture. So I thought, okay, I have pretty good broad general knowledge. My background was in international relations, and I kind of have a good overall general grasp of things going on in the world. But China was never my specialty. I knew a fair bit, probably certainly more than most people, especially people in the West or in North America or in the USA. So I respected Jeff's background, and I thought he did good work. It was interesting, the perspective of a Westerner um, who knows a lot more about China than I or most Westerners do, or Americans. He's from Oklahoma originally. So anyway, so I would keep an eye on some of his work sometimes, and I wanted to, so he seemed like he was, one of the few people really putting out good information about China, and so I wanted to help him. I'm actually, full transparency, I did donate money to him, and I thanked him for his work and that I had learned a lot from him. And so he got interested in interview. He checked out my stuff, and he knew had gotten interested in China. And so he had suggested, months ago, okay, maybe I'll interview. And I was busy with traveling and everything. And then it came back up. It came up. The topic came up again. And he said, "Oh, okay, let's set it up." And I said, "Okay." Um, and then so I did the interview, and it was very interesting, and I enjoyed it. And I don't think he was doing a lot of interviews. I guess he did occasionally do interview people. But anyway, right, let's see what happened. So right after that interview, Jeff did this video where he was promoting some project of a friend of his named John D. Rachel. So he was promoting this Peace Dividend movie or documentary or something. And there were all these big names supposedly going to appear in this documentary. So Jeff was pitching this project and trying to get investors. I think they needed John Rachel needed like $6 million or something like that. It was a huge amount of money. And then he's listing all these names of people. And I didn't like that, basically Jeff was shilling for his friend. And it seemed like a very dodgy project because a lot of the people that he was naming, I already knew they were sort of disinformation assets and sort of fake anti-war. There are a lot of people who are supposedly anti-war, but they actually support regime change because they don't see these color revolutions, or psyops. So they fool people. They look like popular uprisings when they're not. So anyway, I was very disturbed when I saw this video, and I think it was actually Scott Creighton. Scott and I, he helped me start my channel, and so we talk about stuff sometimes. And I think he got interested. Scott got interested in China too. When I started looking at the Hong Kong protests or riots, and now it's terrorism. So he took an interest in that, and so he started putting out very good videos, work about what's going on in Hong Kong. So he watched the interview, and he thought that was good. But then he saw that Peace Dividend movie, and I think he noticed it, and then he pointed it out to me. I'm going, "What the heck is that?" I was very disturbed by it. So this was Scott's video. Is the Peace Dividend movie another grift like Unrigged? So Scott had talked about, I guess it was back in 2017 after Donald Trump was inaugurated. So Robert David Steele, who's a CIA asset, came up with this moneymaker with, and unfortunately he suckered in Cynthia McKinney into this way of making money and getting donations, unrigging the system, and you know, so it's always about changing the establishment or whatever, but nothing ever changes. Anyway, so Scott did that video about, so he criticized Jeff, shilling for his friend. And I posted I commented, and actually I was so disturbed that Jeff had done this. I sent him an email. So this is actually, I'm going to read, so this is, I just sent him a simple email, and I said, so this was on January 23rd. I said, "Dear Jeff, I have to warn you about the Peace Dividend movie that you're promoting in your latest video. It's a scam. The figure behind it, John Rachel, is notorious for preying on people's good intentions and giving them false hope. The people involved in the project are an A-list of fake anti-war disinfo assets. If you want more information about this, I would be happy to explain. I'm sending this out of concern for your reputation." So I sent him that. But little did I know that John D. Rachel, and so this is John Rachel. Little did I know that Jeff had actually done another interview with John Rachel in October of 2018. So here he was shilling again for John Rachel. So John Rachel was trying to get people into so the Peace Dividend. Yeah, so this is talking about the Peace Dividend again. So the Peace Dividend is about getting politicians to sign a contract, and then he would get certain politicians to sign this contract for the Peace Dividend, I guess. I can't remember. And then everybody would get supposedly $15,000. So you would vote for the candidates who had signed the contract or something for this Peace Dividend. Just ridiculous. So I did not realize that he and John D. Rachel are actually friends. So this is the reply that I got from Jeff. So he said to me, you replied the same day, "Dear Barb, I have known John Rachel for years. We are very close friends. He and his wife just spent a week at our place in Thailand. He's as solid as a rock. I have friends who are libertarian to communist, atheist to devout believers, and everything in between. We all have different means to fight global capitalism and Western empire. My long-standing first-hand knowledge of John and his wife are incontrovertible. Thank you for your concern, Jeff." Well, that surprised me that they are very close friends. And that's fine. I think you can have friends that you don't always agree with, but I think Jeff, he's jeopardizing his reputation for friendship. And I don't think you should ever jeopardize your reputation. Once you've lost your reputation like that, you can't get it back. And I think I think people can remain friends and not have to agree on everything. Or, I don't know, to me, I don't know. I started out my channel and I got disgusted with people selling out for money, selling out their values for money. And here Jeff seems to be selling out for friendship. And so I was very, very disappointed in Jeff. And let's see. So then after that, so what's really strange is later on, so a couple of days later, so I had sent, Jeff a link to Scott's video criticizing the Peace Dividend in this movie or documentary. And so then a couple of days later, I got an email from John Rachel himself. Oh yeah, because on Twitter, I had tagged, this is John D. Rachel's Twitter account. So I had tagged him with Scott's video, and they got into a little bit of an exchange. And I jumped in and I put in my 2 bits. I don't remember. But anyway, so a couple of days after that email exchange with Jeff, I got this email from John Rachel, and it looks like Jeff got a copy of it too. But what's weird, so it included an email that Jeff had sent, that John D. Rachel had sent to Jeff, his friend Jeff. So here's the email that he had sent to Jeff, and it says, Jeff, thanks for your video message. Great way to share thoughts. I should wire myself into that. Don't waste your time on this. She and Scott are way out on the lunatic fringe, and nobody pays attention to them. It's just an annoyance, but the fact that you interviewed her really caught me off guard. Now look at that. So he says Scott and I are the lunatic fringe. And, Scott says sometimes, he's told me this, and he told me this early when I started making videos and was exchanging views with him. And, he's had years of experience in trying to tell the truth. So he told me, and he says this, so he and I consider ourselves the real left. So, we still believe in like traditional leftist views, which a lot of people on the left have kind of abandoned. And there are a lot of people on the left who pretend to be anti-war, but then they support regime change, especially, they might be anti-war. Oh, in the Middle East, we're anti-war, but they support regime change, against Turkey or whatever. It's these are disinformation assets. So that's what Jeff is becoming, and John D. Rachel is. And Scott says, that the left, like the fake left, they really hate the real left. So this is John D. Rachel is the fake left, and he's expressed. So we're the lunatic fringe. So this is the way the CIA and the CIA wants people to argue with people trying to tell the truth and saying, "Oh, you're crazy." Yeah, okay, so we're lunatic fringe. So this is what he says: we're the way out on the lunatic fringe, and nobody pays attention to them. Yeah, because we're nobodies. We're peasants. So John D. Rachel, apparently has his hierarchy. You can tell by his Twitter page. So he's got all these celebrity dissidents, but almost everybody here that I see, they are disinformation assets or CIA. There's Edward Snowden. So he's a CIA PSYOP, psychological operation. He's not a dissident. I don't know, it's very disturbing. So this is who peace is only possible by knowing the truth. So these are supposedly the truth tellers. Well, you get a little bit of truth, but you're not going to get the full truth from any of these people, or almost none of them really. So what else did John D. Rachel say? So going on, he said, these so-called leftists, there you go, were so-called leftists who try to destroy the good efforts of other leftists are symptomatic of the impoverishment of the movement. There are a lot of psychos who see the only way to promote themselves is to denigrate and discredit others. Well, I'm not trying to promote myself. I didn't really need to do that interview with Jeff Brown. I just had some respect for him, and, I just enjoyed him, and he knew a lot about China, so, I'm not trying to promote myself. I'm not doing this for money. And I just do it. This is not my job or anything. I just feel compelled to speak out. And this started in 2016. And Scott's done this far longer than I have. And he got involved because of 9/11. He looked into what happened there and realized the truth. And Scott doesn't do it for money. He's not up front asking for money. He has something in his show notes if you want to donate, fine, but he to speak the truth and talk about these things. So I'm not trying to promote myself by cutting down others. I'm just, if someone's not telling the truth, someone's spreading disinformation or straight propaganda, I'm going to say that's propaganda, that's bullshit, that's disinformation. So he also says, I looked at Aunt Bibi's Twitter page. She does some good work. Even Scott says some of the right things, but much of his leans toward incoherent ranting. He'd be dangerous if anyone truly took him seriously, which I doubt. I looked at a couple of his connections, and they're more demented than him, unlikely as that seems. So let it go. This kind of trolling is expected. That it comes from people who claim to be on our side and in the fight against oligarchical tyranny is disturbing, annoying, counterproductive, but they marginalize themselves with a message that makes little sense and reeks of psychopathy. So be it. John. Yeah, so I get this email that he sent to Jeff. And what's amazing is it's attached to this email where he's supposedly reaching out to me. So this guy he's just an idiot. And I'm really starting to question Jeff Brown now. He tries to reach out to me, but he's got attached this email where he's insulting me and Scott. So anyway, John Rachel, this is his message to me reaching out. It says, Barb, if you'd like to discuss this with me, I invite you to talk to me face to face on Skype. I have nothing to hide. My reputation, to the best of my knowledge, in the community of reformers and revolutionaries, which admirably includes Jeff Brown, has always been beyond dispute. I certainly have never been so viciously attacked before by anyone, even those who might have disagreed on finer points. It seems only fair that before you continue to slander me and the Peace Dividend project, you give me a fair hearing. I'll share with what I've experienced to date and what my goals, intentions, hopes for the future of the world are at the core of this project and have been since its inception. I'll also explain why this movie needs to be made, who it's intended to reach, why it comes in at $5.6 million, and what I hope the positive effects of such a movie will be. Such effects range far beyond the obvious and embrace many of the causes you stand for. So anyway, that's his email. That's his reaching out to me. He insults me, and then I'm supposed to respond to that? I mean, the guy is an idiot. You know, if I'm reaching out to somebody, I don't insult them and say, I don't send an insulting email attachment and then say, oh, call me. No, I might get into heated exchanges with people, but, sometimes, there's good that comes out of that. But that's not my approach. That's not how I do that. But reaching out and then but first insulting me. Like, okay, right, sure. So anyway, it turns out so that there was this video where Jeff had interviewed John. And I listened to this video. And what's interesting about the Peace Dividend movie is there are all these big names being mentioned. I think I forget, and I'm going through the list and I'm going, because I know they're disinformation assets. But in this video, in this interview, John Rachel actually admits they don't have any of those people lined up for this documentary. It's a total scam. So he wants people to donate or invest in this movie. And it's a scam because they don't have any of these people lined up. He's actually reached out to all of these. So I would say a lot of them are in this, you'll see. He names a lot of these people, not all of these people in this image, but a lot of them. And listening to the interview, the only person he's actually so none of those people have responded to him about appearing in this documentary or movie. He did see Dennis Kucinich and talked to Dennis Kucinich about the project. And Dennis Kucinich thought it was a very ambitious project. I'm being very kind. I don't remember exactly. And then he never heard any more from Dennis Kucinich. So that tells you Dennis Kucinich didn't think too much of the project. So this is just, it is like unrigged. So it's a scam. And unfortunately, Jeff Brown got mixed up in this because he's good. That's fine if he wants to be friends with John Rachel. But John Rachel, like, he is an idiot. Like, if you look at his Twitter page, what's very telling, like, I glanced at his Twitter page again. So he's got this thing about the latest tweet is, why would Assad be judged a war criminal for a war that was started by the U.S., Saudi Arabia, and other war criminal states outside of Syria? And well, that's interesting. And this is he's retweeting something about Tulsi Gabbard. Now, Tulsi Gabbard is a fraud. So she's nominally anti-war, but she's very tight, very close to the Israeli lobby, which promotes these regime change operations, and including in Syria. And she's like I call her like the Pentagon War of Terror poster girl. But what's interesting, Johnny Rachel, the thing that I pick up on, a lot of these disinformation assets, they stay safe by not, they don't talk about Israel, or they don't make the connection between Israel and the U.S. Yes, they might blame the U.S. but not Israel, or Israel but not the U.S. but not both. And here he doesn't even mention Israel. So that's how John D. Rachel, that's why he's a disinformation asset. And he doesn't understand that wars are not being waged so much conventionally anymore, but these regime change operations, they use color revolutions now. So, they figured out people aren't really keen on war anymore. So they're waging war, hybrid war, unconventional war, irregular warfare, like in Hong Kong. And that's like irregular warfare. The CIA, what I call the CIA MI6 NGO terrorism in Hong Kong. Anyway, so that's John D. Rachel. And so Scott, he's done since. So he did the video about the Peace Dividend. Oh, the other thing is John. Okay, Jeff Brown. It's not just John D. Rachel that is a problem as far as Jeff Brown. So Jeff Brown did another video with a fellow named who's going by the name Uriah Heep. And he claims to have an intelligence background. And he did this video about the coronavirus outbreak in China. And I watched it and I thought it was interesting, but I had a bad feeling about the guy because he was claiming to have an intelligence background, but he didn't behave like anybody I had ever known in the intelligence community. Like, I only worked, for 8 years in the intelligence community, but, I don't really, people who have worked in the intelligence community, they don't just put everything out there like this guy, and he was kind of like bragging or cocky about it. Um, I mean, I'll talk about my experiences, but I don't really go on and on about it. But I don't know. He just came across as a fraud, this Uriah Heep character. And he was saying a lot of things that sounded interesting, but it was very questionable what he was saying because towards the end, he goes off on about how we need Trump. And I thought, oh, he's trying to appeal to Trump supporters or something. That's weird. I don't know. I had a bad feeling about the guy, and I know others did, but he was saying things that, a lot of people who are questioning the coronavirus outbreak are wondering about. But if you really looked into it, and there were a lot of people asking questions, very questionable. And then Jeff did another video where he defended Uriah Heep. And I saw that video, and yeah, so this guy did another video about that one. So is Jeff J. Brown a dupe, or is he just talking out of his backside? So Jeff was defending some of the questionable stuff that Uriah Heep was saying in that video. And so but the problem with Jeff's videos, you have to go to his blog. He'll have the link to his blog, but that's where you have to find the links. And so this Uriah Heep character, he has a Metallic Man's website, and it's just a ridiculous website if you look at it. And so he's got links. So he had asked this Uriah Heep character for links to the information about, he was claiming that there were these gangs called the stir-fry gangs, and how they were flying these drones around inside China and spreading African swine flu, I think particularly over pig farms or something, I don't know. So there are all these links that are given, but they're either from like Western mainstream news outlets, or like South China Morning Post. South China Morning Post is like disinformation at best. It's like Western mainstream media. So I think the problem with this information, and it's coming from Western mainstream and other disinformation and propaganda or disinformation as outlets, is it's painting a very grim picture of what's going on inside China, like there are all these rogue gangs running around. And I don't think that's the case. There are problems inside China. There are regime change operatives, who will sell out. I'll talk about some of those another time. But yeah, this information about these stir-fry gangs is very questionable. And Jeff was saying too, claiming that the information, yeah, he mentions an acquaintance of his saying, there is this and gangs and like CIA and biological warfare. But this, you can't just say, okay, you can't legitimize these stories just by saying, well, there's this history, because these sources are not reliable. So a friend of his made, this statement: gangsters are commonly deployed as agents. That was one of the pillars of the Kuomintang. So it is entirely possible that gangsters used drones to spray swine flu. The link between organized crime and the Secret Service is marital. I would agree there is that history, but these sources are not reliable. Another thing Jeff talks about in regards to Uriah Heep is the collection of DNA in Russia and China. And yeah, he cites the global research link, and that's fine. But then he goes on to say that if you do, like he's talking about when you go onto Baidu, Baidu is the Chinese equivalent of Google. And if you do searches on these subjects, you will find links to Chinese outlets supposedly confirming this information. Well, I have learned, I know Jeff, what's interesting, Jeff knows China in a way better than me. He knows Chinese, but I picked up, I think I'm better at picking up on disinformation than he is, or even propaganda sometimes. Um, so he's talking about these Baidu searches, and yeah, how many search results you get on certain topics on Baidu, the Chinese search engine. But I know I have picked up on the fact that in China, in Chinese media, so Chinese, the internet, they have a firewall and filters out, Western information, but that information still makes its way into China. There's no way of keeping that information out. I have learned that there are Chinese news outlets. I will cite a couple that I've picked up on: China Daily and CGTN. I forget what the expansion of that. Those two outlets, I have noticed that there is disinformation reported on those official, or I guess they're official, semi-official news outlets from China. So there is disinformation in Chinese media. And Jeff seems to think that if the source comes from China, then the information is legitimate. Well, not necessarily. I'm learning there's a lot of state media, Syrian state media forever. For example, they like to smear Turkey because there have been tensions with Turkey, for decades, Um, um, but you have to take a lot of information with a grain of salt. And Russia Today, there's a lot of disinformation from Russia Today. So even in Russian media, you're going to get disinformation. So Jeff is wrong to think that the source is Chinese, it's legitimate information. It's not. I've learned that much. And unfortunately, there are a lot of social media figures, online content creators, who are portrayed as pro-China, but I know that they are disinformation assets. And Carl Jha on Twitter, who produces podcasts, and he has a YouTube channel, but he's mostly known on Twitter. He's a disinformation asset. So he's supposedly pro-China, but he's more like, okay, we like China, but we would like it to reform. He'll suggest that. I will have to talk about Carl Jha another time. Another disinformation asset is Danny Dumrell. So Carl Jha and Danny Dumrell are disinformation assets. And they have a connection with Max Blumenthal, who's, if you know Max Blumenthal's background, he is a very big disinformation asset for the State Department, we shall say. So he has connection to Hillary Clinton through his father, and he's been a regime change asset in the past, and he still is. So he's smearing Turkey now. So I just want to inform people that, um, what am I trying to say here? So anyway, it's about Jeff Brown and how he's been spreading disinformation and promoting these dodgy figures like John D. Rachel and Uriah Heep. And I'm really sorry that Jeff has done this, and I can only fear he's done it for friendship and for money. And I did donate to him. I supported his work. I thought he was doing good work, but he's become a disappointment and he's becoming a disinformation asset. And he really has gone off the rails. And people have gotten upset with me for criticizing Jeff. And they think I'm trying to claim, oh, that, I'm perfect. And, but I'm not trying to be disinformation. When I make mistakes, it seems to be the problem. Jeff, if he makes a mistake, he's not going to correct it. Well, when I make a mistake, I will correct it because I don't want to put disinformation out there. And I'm not doing this for money. So I don't know. I think that must be a big motivator for Jeff now, is friendship and money now. So even at the beginning of his videos now, he's talking about money, and it's that seems to be where his head is. He's trying to make a lot of connections and get more donations. And he's just retired, I guess, and so I know Social Security doesn't pay much these days. So, and he's living in Thailand now to because it's more affordable than in China. He was living in China and teaching in China, I think. So unfortunately, that's my experience with Jeff Brown. I've got a lot more I could say, but he's become a disappointment, and he has put out good information, but you have to be really careful with him now. He's not correct in saying that if a source is from China, then the information is sound, is reliable. I've learned that's just not the case. China's a big country. There's a lot of information out there, and information that's on the Western internet, it creeps into China. And anyway, that's all I want to say about Jeff. I just wanted to talk about Jeff and these figures that he's gotten mixed up in. It's very unfortunate. It's very sad. So anyway, friendship. Yeah, he needs to. Uh, I really hope Jeff will correct his mistakes, but I don't think he is. He seems to be doubling down. So he's placing friendship above truth and integrity and his reputation, and seems to be putting maybe money above. His focus is money, and it's very sad. But that's all I have to say for now. I'm sorry. This is so long. But anyway, I just need to get that off my chest. Anyway, so thanks for listening. And I have to be doing more videos. I know I keep saying that, but I actually have a room now to do this, but I will be moving in the next couple of months. So anyway, thanks for listening, and I'll talk to you again soon. Bye.